I'm Amanda, and this is Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. I hope you're enjoying the podcast this year. I'm having so much fun. We are like halfway through the year already. I can't even believe it. Ugh. Anyway, I have a great guest today. She's been on the show before, but as we've gotten to know each other better over the last couple of years, and I've joined the Badass Quilter Society as a sponsor, I just wanted to have Maddie Kertay on the show again because she's incredible. She has such a strong voice out there in the quilting community, the maker community. She's a gardener, she's a sewist of all kinds of crafts. She's a kitten foster. She does so many things. And she's also a voice of reason in these crazy, crazy times. So anyway, we're going to talk all about her time at H&H. We're going to talk about the Badass Quilter Society. So I hope that you're ready. Buckle up and let's get going. Hi, Maddie. How are you?
Hey, I'm so glad to see you in my post-COVID world.
Oh my gosh, I know. All the adjustments and timing is like that was so crazy, but I'm so glad you're feeling better.
I am. I have a little residual stuff and a little bit of a sinus infection, but otherwise I am definitely back at it, which is good because I just got another kitten last night to take care of.
Oh my gosh. You and those kittens, it's like a revolving door, isn't it?
It is a revolving door. I'm not actually doing quite as much of it right now, just because I have a lot of other stuff going on in my life, and so I'm doing a lot more consultations and high level stuff. So
Okay.
I won't have kittens as often, which is sad because people get really attached to me having kittens.
I know I'm like, I was literally just thinking yesterday, I was like, I haven't seen that many kittens running through Maddie's house yet. So
They haven't been very as many. I've done lots of consultations,
okay.
but helping my other fosters. But there's only so many hours in the day.
Right. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're feeling better. I've been so excited to chat with you because you got some stuff for us from H&H, and we're going to talk about Badass Quilter Society. And we you were on the show before 2 years ago, we just discovered. And so if anybody wants to hear your sewing story, how you got into everything, they can go back to episode 59 and hear about that. But today we are here to talk all about the trends and things coming up that you saw at the
Mhm.
H&H America's trade show.
Yeah, no, it's a fabulous trade show. And what I really love about it is that it is a multi-purpose, I don't even know the word. So they basically started as a knitting show. They started bringing quilting. This year now, it was about 50% fiber art, quilting,
Hmm.
crochet, needlework, and 50% quilting sewing side. And so that really brings a real vibrancy to the industry where you can have a lot more collaborative spirit.
Hmm.
And I think that's really important in times, especially times like these, because we are really stronger with the businesses that we associate with that are like-minded.
Hmm.
And so it's really interesting to see the different trends reflected from the yarn side, from the needlecraft side, and then on the quilting and sewing side. So I was really pleased to be there, besides the fact of bringing home the COVID. I'll forgive it because it really was a great show and I saw a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like living vicariously through everybody's posts because I didn't go this year, obviously, which I'm like, oh, I guess that was good
You
because
actually, if you're going to pick a year not to go.
I know, right? I was like, well, dodge that bullet, but that's fine.
Yes,
Um,
yes, I know. Oh my God.
yeah. So I guess, yeah, like because you do everything. You work with wool, you work with yarn, you work with vintage quilts and upcycling and all that stuff. So did you see anything particularly like groundbreaking, I guess, in terms of what it's going to look like kind of coming up with any collaborations across like crafts or across mediums?
I think one of the things you'll see quilt stores actually branching out into more crafts.
Hmm.
I think because at one time a quilt store was a quilt store was a quilt store, and they had fabric. Maybe they had very distinct sewing notions, but they didn't really as much dabble in needlepoint or punch needle, which was huge. Punch needle had a resurgence, quite a few years ago.
Hmm.
and it is back with a vengeance today. And but the kits they're bright, they're fun. Lots of kits, which is really going to be great from the aspect of like for quilt stores to be able to pick it up and have everything you need.
Yeah.
Especially now that we are living in our post Joanne's years, there's it's a little bit more difficult for people to go and grab the stuff. So being able to start a new craft with a kit
Hmm.
makes things a lot easier. And so I saw a lot of different companies with punch needle kits. Needlepoint, which of course, I don't see as much needlepoint like on Instagram, but if you're on the TikTok, good gravy.
Yeah.
TikTok is like it's like the needlepoint TikTok. If you have fallen into that side of it, tons and tons of needlepoint content. So we saw needlepoint there. Lots of like really great cross stitch.
Mm.
Lots of sassy cross stitch, lots of very feminist cross stitch, lots of stuff that is basically what I would call not your granny's cross stitch.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
And that was really great. Lots of progressive makers. And so
Okay.
that was really nice. I did an event while I was there, and we had 100 because it's a trade show.
Right.
So everybody there is in the business one way or the other, whether they own a to the customer, to the business, or they were a creator, which is like this, which is why like I would go, it's why you would go, so that we were staying, kind of on top of what was going on. But so we had 165 people sign up. So that was 165 um, progressive left-leaning businesses who wanted to get to know each other for
Yeah.
collaborative, intention. So that was really great. So were there like super hyper conservative things there? Yeah, there were. One weird thing, I don't know if it's weird, is that there was also a very undertone that I saw from fabric manufacturers of very bicentennial red, white, and blue flag waving fabrics,
Hmm.
which I thought was really because this anniversary coming up and they're doing all this stuff. And I was like, could we read the room a little bit?
Right.
It was very interesting. So it was interesting to watch the people who really jived on it, who people like they really resonate. And other people were like, nope, nope.
Yeah.
Which is hard though, because I'll say it. I mean, it's hard for me to take back the flag when where I live, it is a sign of hate,
Yeah.
unfortunately, right now. So that's very, very difficult for me. And so I personally struggle with it. So like, I mean, quite frankly, I've become red phobic. I don't even wear red anymore. You won't catch me in a red ball cap or a red sweatshirt because God forbid somebody thinks that I'm MAGA. Because I just don't want that. I mean, red used to be our corporate color for badass quilters, and I changed it. And I actually literally destroyed all of our red merchandise. And you won't see a red t-shirt or a red anything out of us
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, will I someday not like get the eye flick when I see a red hat? Maybe. So I did see that kind of that little flag waving stuff,
Hmm.
going on there. But everything else was just like I said it in a post one morning that I kind of did a little blog, not blog, like vlog. I did a video.
Hmm.
And I said the vibes were immaculate. It really was fantastic to see all of the new products out there. A very big handwork. Handwork was
Mm.
just really, really strong. I mean, there's always going to be your long arms. I mean, and I love my long arm. God knows. I love my really big six needle, embroidery machine. I love my fancy stuff. But I also love, like you mentioned, I love doing work with wool.
Hmm.
And which was another one that was actually very interesting because I am obviously a very progressive person, but as a big entity, the wool world, that's very hard to say, is very conservative.
Hmm.
It's a very conservative. The only place that's not is like Sue Spargo.
Hmm.
She's bright, she's modern. They have very modern take on things. And they're amazing people. I really love them. But a lot of the wool is just it's super it's like Little House on the Prairie. And then it's also very conservative with the people who own them. So I'm really happy to kind of be talking a little bit more about progressive because it's wonderful working with wool, but not if you can't locally find support if those aren't people you want to hang with.
Mm-hmm.
So like everything else. So I was really excited about everything I saw. I saw a lot of quilt shops, listened to a lot of quilt shops talk about the fact that they had made sacrifices to be there. They had taken extra lines of credit. They had taken loans. They had taken so that they could survive this next year, so they
Mm-hmm.
could invest in having product. And then they were standing there buying, crossing their fingers that the consumer was going to show up for them. And as you know, it's like super important to me because I have Badass Quilter Society has sponsors, and those sponsors are all sponsors who, just like you, who've
Mm-hmm.
come to me and said, "Hey, I want to be part of this. I want to recognize and show off the fact that that there is a great and progressive element within the quilting world." And so it's super important where people shop. But
Mm-hmm.
the hope is that they do shop because these quilt stores, these brands were there. I mean, just as a brand to be there, like there were tiny companies that were there, but like a booth is $3,000 to $5,000 for a small booth just to go there and have a booth.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that's a lot of investment
Yeah.
that they are making on the hopes of exposing their product, selling their product wholesale, and then getting it into shops. So there's a lot of risk being taken out there, and they're just hoping that the consumers also show up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's hard. I can imagine because even just like a local show that's like, oh, it's $100 to sign up. I'm like, "Ugh,"
Mhm.
those fees are they add up. And if you're not making your money back or you're not selling
Mhm.
enough, the consumers don't show up, then it's like, well, what am I doing this for?
Yeah,
And especially now when manufacturing, fabric manufacturers are looking at the fact that like, I mean, who knows what it's going to be now because they keep
yeah,
going back and forth, but like all this like anxiety about the tariffs and the up,
sure.
the increase in cost, the increase in cost that could potentially happen, but it's like this back and forth thing that keeps happening. It's like, oh, it's in effect. No, it's not. It is for some places, but not others. But it's like it's a mess and it's hard to navigate. And as a business owner, it makes you hesitate because you're like, well, what if I make this decision and now it's going to cost me thousands of dollars extra on
Oh,
top of what I'm already paying, not having a huge margin. Because I think that's the other thing is people think like, oh, fabric it's so expensive now. They must be making so much money. No, the margin is still pretty narrow.
it's still quite narrow when you consider all the expenses that have to go against that margin. It's people are like, oh, they just must be, there was never a time when I owned a quilt shop that I went at home and laid on a bed of dollar bills. I mean,
Right.
I did not roll around in ecstasy with money all around me because it is still a very narrow margin world. And there is a need, to understand the risk that business owners are taking. I mean, there's an inherent risk having a business, no matter what. But
Hmm.
now with the insecurity, like you said, of the tariffs, is it on? Is it off? How much is it? Because it's still higher than it was. Even with this 90-day pause, the tariff are still higher than they were pre-tariff. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like, oh yeah, it's not 145% anymore, but it's an extra 30% tariff on top of the tariffs that were already there. So that's still affecting
Right.
fact prices, and those are going to have to be pushed off someplace. They just don't magically disappear anyplace. And then you have the whole issue of if the ships are not coming back and forth because the ships are not full, that means that fabric or notions or whatever it is sits on a dock for God knows how long. I mean, we experienced that back during COVID. I mean,
Hmm.
shipments or collections that were supposed to come out in, spring didn't show up till fall,
Right.
and which totally threw off all the cycles of everything. And then yet your money many times was already committed
Right.
to those things. So you couldn't take your money and go, oh, I'll invest it in something else that I can do and make money on quickly because your money was already invested. So there's a lot of things to think about. And I think that's where, as consumers, yeah, we need to think more carefully, but we also have to think about who do we want to still see in business when this
Hmm.
is all over? And
Yeah.
somebody, this one's if you get any messages, this is going to be the one you get. I no longer use the phrase LQS, local quilt store. I really prefer FQS, favorite quilt store.
Mm,
Because the truth of the matter is, many of us live in areas where we cannot support in good conscience our local quilt store
mhm.
because they do not reflect the values that we want to put out in this world. And so, as somebody who really thinks that that's how we need to shop, I really favor finding the quilt store that is going to be your very best fabric bestie, but it's not necessarily in your hometown. You still need to support them. These shops still need support, but you know what? If they choose to, if your local quilt store happens to fly a Civil War flag outside, as one does in my area, then there's other people to support them. That's fine. It doesn't have to
Yeah,
be my dollars.
no.
And so I that's why I really feel like quilt stores should be really open about who they are. If they want to be openly MAGA, that's okay with me because it just means I know not to put my money there. Um, so controversial opinion, probably. My opinion, yes.
Yeah, and same, like I think yeah, that can be so tricky, especially when you are trying to choose where your dollars go. You're essentially, voting with your dollars. You're
Or voting.
putting your money where your mouth is. It's like if I say I'm this progressive person who believes in equality and feminism and, you
Mhm.
know, I'm a supporter of an ally of the LGBTQIA plus community, then I better not go be spending all my money at somewhere that actively fights that or actively like is open about being against
Absolutely. I
people
mean,
having normal lives.
and the truth is, I mean, sometimes people live in areas where there is absolutely no other options for very basic everyday goods. I
Right.
would never consider, as much as I love quilting and crafting, a basic everyday good.
Right.
And so I think we have to make really hard choices. And honestly, I don't know that we're really good people at making hard choices like that because we've gotten very spoiled.
Mhm.
We've gotten spoiled for choice. I mean, um, and so learning, to live in a different way, I think is really difficult. And I think some of us have made good transitions and others not so much.
Mhm.
And the idea that we can't have what XYZ, whatever it is, within an hour or get it in our hands or whatever. I mean, it's not that I haven't run into that because I have. I've been like, well, boogers, I'm going to
Mm,
have to wait to do that project because I'm going to need to order that from my, favorite store online. And so it's going to take time. And so you kind of
yeah.
learn a different pace of sewing, which is kind of interesting because we've run through a very long time of a very prolific quilt making time. I mean, it's not unusual to see people make multiple quilts a month.
Mhm.
And not just people who are in social media, because social media people, are cranking it out for the gram. And I've got feelings about that also. But
Yeah.
because it gives, definitely gives a very skewed perspective because it's
Mhm.
always like keeping up with the internet Joneses.
Mhm.
But they're like average. There are people out there who are just cranking out a lot of stuff because there's this pressure of the next fabric collection that's out, the whatever, the all the online, challenges or whatever. And again, not a popular opinion, but I'm like, how many quilts do we need? How
Yeah.
many easy quilts in this world do we need? I think you can have and still make quilts and still send them and support your long armor and do, or quilt them yourself or whatever. But I know lots of people who just have stacks and stacks of quilt tops.
Mhm.
It's not like it's ending up in your studio getting quilted.
Yeah.
It's they're just people with stacks of quilt tops. And I get it, there's a joy in making that. But if you're making the same easy quilt top again and again and again because it's emotionally cathartic,
Mhm.
maybe try some therapy.
Yeah.
Try some
Yeah.
therapy because I don't know. And again, not a popular opinion.
Yeah.
But there's when we talk about like we slam on fast fashion a lot, but there's a lot of fast quilting. that's
Hmm.
happening out there as well. And lots of those quilts are just stacking up places.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard. There's a lot to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely a shift in my head that I've had to make personally because I was like, always running out to buy the newest, latest release. And don't get me wrong, I love the
That's
fabric.
gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. Like I might break down and buy some of it because there are some that I'm like, I
Yeah,
can't live without it, but I mean I could. But you know what I mean?
sure.
Like the joy that I
There is
get when I
joy.
see it is
Totally.
exciting. And it's not that way with every release, that comes out. But I think that's normal. But also, yeah, like how many quilts do I need? It's just me and my husband here at home. Now the boys are in and out, whatever, but I don't have time to make that many quilts. Like I'd rather focus on helping people finish their quilts, like because that's my
Sure.
job. That's what I
Yeah.
do. Send me your quilt tops. Because yeah, I think that is it. Like we're just perpetually making tops, making tops, making tops. And it's like, but what's what are you getting at? It's like if you're just making quilt tops to make something, then yeah, try some therapy. Sewing and quilting, as we learned with the therapist I had on the show, it's therapeutic, but there's also you like if
There's avoidance.
there's avoidance.
There's avoidance in sewing rooms. I mean, we all
Yeah.
it is our happy place. It's the place we get away from
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm never gonna say don't make stuff. Good gosh knows. Because I mean, like those
Right.
cabinets are full. There's a huge crafting unit over there. They're full of stuff. I love to make stuff.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally get it. But I also feel the need to start being a little bit more introspective
Yeah.
about that feeling that to
Yeah.
what I used to say is that if it weren't for crafts I'd probably do drugs. I mean, because it's like uh,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, because we're just moving one, thing that we've got going on and we're like foisting it off on someplace else. I think it's very
Hmm.
interesting watching the people who talk about now, because of course a lot of people are not shopping at Target anymore. I'm one of those people, but they're
Me
like,
too.
oh my God, I have so much more money in my bank account because these people were going, I was never a big Target shopper in the first place, but there were people who were going there 3, 4, 5 times a week.
Hmm.
And they're like, and they've decided, no, I'm not going to do that because of, the whole DEI and how Target really just, man, they fucked the pooch on that. I was like, dude, you guys messed up.
They were
Uh,
like, get rid of it. And everybody was like, oh, you want to play that game? All
but
right,
watch
let's tank your
this.
sales. Yeah.
I know. I know. It's like, hold my beer.
Hmm.
But people have been like, oh my gosh, I was there. They're realizing things about themselves.
Hmm.
And as hard as I think this time is, I think it's also a time that we can also be really reflective of
Yeah.
who we are, how we're showing up in the world, what we're doing, and be thoughtful about it. Because we can still be thoughtful. We can still enjoy the hell out of crafts. We can
Yeah.
still love these things. We can still support the shops that we want to support.
Hmm.
And do the things that need to be done. Maybe it was just subtle shifts and stuff.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who was doing lots and lots and lots of quilting, but she's like, oh, what I really love is sewing things again and again and again. She said it's very clear to my mind. She said, so I had to figure out a thing that I could sew again and again and again that would also be helpful.
Hmm.
Because that was like she got into that place where she was like, man, I don't feel good about this. And so she's now sewing little zippered pouches that are going to a program that does feminine products for girls who don't have money to get
Yeah.
the products that they need. And she's like, I'm having a ball doing these. I'm like making these, I'm choosing different fabrics. I'm doing for different fronts and backs. I'm learning how to make different kinds of pouches. She said, I just transferred those things into something that was needed for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think there's just
Yeah.
lots of ways to think about it. And it's not that you can't sit down and make a beautiful quilt just because sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Right.
I think we can use this time also to think a little bit
Hmm.
because things are
Yeah.
changing. We won't go back. It'll look different.
Hmm.
It'll look different on the other side of this. I saw like a little meme that said, "This too will end. This too will end." But holy shit! I mean,
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I think like COVID, everything that happened during the lockdowns and stuff, it really, people are like, oh, mental health got so bad. I was like, no, I think mental health was already poor.
Mhm.
People just didn't have their numbing activities anymore. They
Oh yeah.
couldn't keep escaping from the things that they were running from.
Mhm.
And some people found sewing to be that new thing, or they transferred that kind of anxiety into a different activity, and sometimes that was great. That's what people needed, and sometimes it led people into a different space entirely. But I think this is another one of those times where we're really having to look ourselves in the mirror and go, okay, bitch, like, what are we doing? What is
Yeah.
our life? Where do we stand? What do we want from this? Like, do I want to die with the most stuff, or do I want to die feeling like I made the most impact I could? And there's nothing, like you said, there's nothing wrong with making stuff, with crafting, with having a hobby and doing something that brings you joy. I have so much fabric and I have so much yarn, and there's all these things I've done crafting wise because I do love it.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
it's like, okay, shifting my mentality instead of like, okay, well, that just came out. I need to buy more fabric. It's like, okay, what do I do with what I have?
mhm.
Because I did the same thing with all that. Why am I buying this? And like, who's it for? What is it for? Is it just because I feel like it's that dopamine hit of feeling like I've like, okay, I'm one of the cool kids that got this new fabric and now I can go show it off online and it can be this whole thing. Or like, what if I focus on what I already have and hone skills in different ways? And so it's just, yeah, I think is definitely, like what you said, it's going to be a shift of our mindset of like, where are our priorities now? What are we doing? What are we doing?
It is. I mean, and what I say is, yeah, you might have fabric that, that you've had for a long time. You know, you can still go to your quilt shop and you can still find you can find some fat cores, you can find something else that sparks love for what you do have.
Yeah,
Because I think we got to a point where we had a lot extra and then we bought new and maybe we work with that and then part of it, then the other part and so we just kind of filled up these parts. And yes, there's a certain point where we don't love that because we've changed who we are. We've changed our aesthetic. We've changed whatever. And I think that's also because what I love seeing is people who are doing like swaps and trades.
yeah,
They're putting stuff up on Rada, who is sewing through Fog, who also has the network where people can sell their fabric up online.
yeah.
And so that that you can find a new home for your fabric so that you can literally buy new fabric. I mean, because it's just all part of that cyclical process,
Hmm.
and continuing to use, what you have and adding some of the pretties with it. Because, like you said, it's gorgeous. There's beautiful stuff out there,
Hmm.
and and we do want to support the people that we love who are taking these risks and having these businesses, but I think there's other ways to support them too. I mean,
Hmm.
you and I were talking earlier about like, people who when we have followers online and stuff like that, those people who are like really great at sharing our posts or, commenting or whatever, you can become your favorite shop's biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
And that makes a really big difference to the shops. And there's lots of different ways to do those things and just kind of thinking through who you want to be. And
Hmm.
that's really funny because I've been thinking about that pretty deeply because I mean, years and years and years ago, I branded up as the badass quilter, just because of like a throwaway phrase. But quilting in many ways is the smallest part of what I do,
Hmm.
which is really weird. Because, and I think you saw a lot of this happen, like you said, in COVID. People
Hmm.
were like, damn, I'm not happy with my life. And they had to come face to face with that. When
Hmm.
you don't have the stuff, when you don't have the other things that are clouding that perspective, or you have just a time of such stress that you hit that point where you're like, is this how I want to keep going on with my life? Is this
Yeah.
the thing I want to do? And I think it's really hard because some people, I've had them whisper it to me like, I don't know if I love quilting anymore. And they say it
Hmm.
really quietly. And they're like, and they're like, well, because they're so invested in it.
Hmm.
They're emotionally invested. It's become the bigger part of their personality.
Hmm.
Because when people, and I realize that is that, man, is that what I want them to be the first thing that they say about me at my funeral? Is that I was a quilter?
Hmm.
I'm like, no, that isn't the thing that I want to be remembered for.
Yeah.
And that was kind of scary. I mean, what is it that you want to be remembered for? I mean, yeah, do I want to be remembered as somebody who made some cool quilts along with a bunch of other stuff? Yeah. But is that the first thing I want people to know about me? It's like, ooh, that's some deep thinks. That's some
Yeah.
scary thinks, especially if you have centered your life and your career around it.
Hmm.
You're just like, huh, well then, I guess I need to go hire somebody and unpack that. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. For
emo-
real.
emotionally unpack that because sometimes we work ourselves into a place because that thing is also what became our social community
Hmm.
or our online community. And if we are not that thing anymore, and that's been the really interesting one is people who've come into me and said, I don't know who I'm going to be if I'm not this thing. And it's not even necessarily quilting. Sometimes it's being a home, and I've done this multiple times in my life. And so I think that's why maybe I'm a little bit, it's still hard, quicker to embrace it because like I was a homeschool mom for years and years and years when
Hmm.
I was not that thing anymore, it was like, because that was such a big part of my personality or
Right.
my social structure and stuff like that. And when I didn't have that anymore, all of that collapsed around me.
Hmm.
And then, so I was like, oh, who the hell am I now?
Yeah.
Who are, and I know a lot of women experience that when their kids leave home, when their kids leave off for college and they're not needed in the same way. Not that your kids don't ever stop needing you. All my kids are adults now, and I hear from almost every one of them every day for one reason or another. Mostly they're sending me like crude memes, but
Yeah.
or a couple of us, we both garden. And so we're like, it's like, what is eating this leaf? We send pictures back and forth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they still need you, but not in the same way. And so
Yeah.
a lot of women, I don't know that men do to the greater degree. I mean, right or wrong, because I think men tend to be more caught up in their careers and different
Mhm.
things like that. I mean, sure, it does happen. But you always hear much more of women who feel at an absolute loss
Yeah.
because that social structure is gone from your life.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think that there's a lot to think about what does this thing mean to you in your life?
Hmm.
And I think for a lot of us, it means a lot.
Hmm.
And figuring out where, but does it still make us happy? Because for some people, it does. It's just every bit of their joy.
Yeah.
And it makes, and then other people are like, I think I'd like to try something else. Or you see them, or maybe they're just more well-rounded because they're also a runner. They're also a what, they also have all these other parts. But for me, I was just like, the first thing is like, wow, is that the thing I want to be known for?
Hmm.
It's,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That was a lot to unpack there. Sorry about that.
No, no, it's great because I think a lot of people are facing that question. They're asking themselves that question, like, who am I outside of this hobby? Who am I outside of this business? And as a person who tends to put my whole personality into whatever I'm doing, that's the elder millennial urge. I've had to ask myself that question, a few times in the last, 8, 10 years. Like when I stopped teaching to put my full time into the business, like
Oh, I'm sure that was huge. Because am
existential
I a
crisis.
teacher? I can imagine. I can
Yeah.
absolutely imagine. I imagine that was very much like when we stopped, when all my kids graduated and I was not the homeschooling mother anymore.
Yeah.
And it was just like,
Who the hell am I? Yeah.
it was very shocking. I
Yeah.
had not seen that one coming.
Hmm.
That one, it was just like all of a sudden you wake up and you're not that thing. I mean, because technically, are you a teacher anymore? Well, you are because you still have that degree. You
Right.
still have those things, but it's not how you introduce yourself anymore.
No. No. And it's so funny because if I'd be like, people are like, oh, what do you do? And I'd say, oh, I'm a teacher. They're, oh, I could never. I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, okay, fuck off. But now I just get it in a different way with quilting. Like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
that's a dying art. I'm like, the multi-billion-dollar
And you're
industry
like
says otherwise.
the $5 billion industry. It's just not an industry that they know anything about.
Yeah, I'm like, you'd be so surprised if you just went on Quilty Instagram or like if you actually paid attention. But you know, if it's not in your purview, if you don't have quilters in your life or sewists or people who have
Oh,
like loud hobbies where, and I think that's a side effect. Yeah, a side effect of patriarchy is that women are so much more quiet about what they do.
mhm.
We're not encouraged to be out loud and open and talk about it and have pride in it. And you know, it's what we're not all striving to be humble, whatever Kamala said on
Yeah.
Call Her Daddy. We're not all out here trying to be humble, quiet people either. And so then when you do talk about it, people just start to dismiss it immediately because they're like, oh, you're a cute little business. And I'm like,
Yeah, I know. I know. That one always just gets my eyes like, people still do that? And I'm like, yes, people still do that.
so
They
many
still
people
do
still
that.
do it.
Or I mean, or when people would say, because some people at HH knew me, some people did not, some people
Mhm.
like me, some people very much did not. Okay. And somebody said something about it, and they're like, "Are there actually progressives who quilt? Why would they do that?" But I mean, and it's very interesting because like the things that I like very. In fact, I put up a thing today. It said vintage
Mhm.
quilts, not vintage values. I happen to like vintage quilts quite a bit, and
Yeah.
there's just automatically this like erroneous understanding. I mean, it's no different. I went to go buy, I do canning and all that kind of stuff also, which I was buying some freaking ass mason jars, and some dude was super happy to see me doing the womanly arts. And I was like, I'll give you some womanly arts here in a minute, dude. I mean,
I'll show
I know,
you what's up.
I know. And I was just like, actually, and I got really all snippy about it because I was just like the automatic idea that if we quilt, if we sew, if we whatever, needlepoint, whatever, that is a reflection on, how we believe that we should exist,
Hmm.
in this world. Super makes me super spicy. Super
Hmm.
spicy. Um,
Hmm.
but it also, blends back in because there's so much social media pressure out there with like the whole trad wife content, which is just cosplay.
Oh my
Trad
God.
wife, trad wifeism is cosplay because there is no woman from 1800s America who was excited to clean her clothes on a rock.
No.
I saw a woman the other day who was talking about how much better it was to take her clothes out in the yard and wash them on a washboard. And she was like floating in this little gown, and she was just like, and I was like, that is effing cosplay.
Yeah.
There is not, I mean, my grandmother would have fallen over dead 5 times in happiness if she had a washer and dryer.
Hmm.
It's just but it's a cosplay that feeds the patriarchy. And I work every day to make sure that my sort of quilting and woodwork and all the stuff that I do is so far removed from that. Probably to the point of being a little pushy about it because I so want to remove it from that spot,
Yeah.
that thought.
Yeah. And I like that you put it in those terms because it feels so forced and so fake. Like,
Mm.
and I think it does, it harkens back to the idea that like this MAGA movement of like it's like this whole idea that America was so much greater at some other time. It's like, oh, when more people were oppressed, when more rights were unavailable to people, when more, it's like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah, I once heard a quote, or like it was a discussion about somebody that they wanted a more Leave It to Beaver like world. And I'm like,
that
well,
wasn't real.
it wasn't real. And that woman who played Leave It to Beaver's mother, who wore her pearls and was vacuuming in pearls, she was a working woman. She was
Mhm.
actually not cleaning her own house. She was actually having to get up in the morning and go to work and be on this set and do all these things and not care for her own child because she was watching over the beaver. I mean, on
Mhm.
things, it's like it wasn't real. It's no more, we somehow equate realness to Instagram and TikTok and those places where we were like, of course, if it's on TV, it's not real. Well, it's not real here either. And I really
No.
try to be really clear about that. Any snippet of my life that is seen, there's a whole scattered mess that you're not seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And just because somebody thinks they know me, I mean, I'm pretty open about most of my life. But there's parts of it that nobody on the internet is ever going to know about, because it's none of their effing business.
Yeah.
And so to keep it in their, I feel like there's like, when I was a kid, like when things happened, they would like run across the banner on the bottom of the television screen. Because that's
Mm-hmm.
how the one thing it's like I remember the time. I remember actually when Elvis died. I was after school. I was home. I was watching whatever after school show that I watched. I was sitting in front of the television, crisscross applesauce with my legs, eating my saltine crackers with American cheese folded up on it.
Ooh.
Ooh, I know. That was what I ate for snack. But I remember the banner coming across that said that Elvis had died. I remember it coming across and I remember reading it and just being like, oh my God, the whole bit. But I feel like the internet almost needs a banner that goes across is like things are not as they appear. Like, those
Mm-hmm.
side window, like your side mirrors,
Yeah.
objects are closer than they appear.
Yeah.
Well, this is a distorted view of reality. Please continue to remember this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a distorted review. You are showing your highlight reel to the world. It can be a highlight reel of all the shitty things that happened in your day too, because that's kind of entertaining in its own way, but
Right.
not real.
No.
It's not real, and it's not when you see somebody's quilt come together in 60 seconds. It didn't come together in 60 seconds, and we can say that in our heads and say, no, I know that, but it still puts a certain pressure on you. It's
Mm-hmm.
that little distortion that I think's a lot like that the fact that it still works that we put 5.99 instead of $6 and our head still says it's $5 no
Mm-hmm.
matter what. And I know when it something says 5.99 that's $6, but how much does my head think? $5 still.
Mm. Yeah.
So our heads think what they see and process it differently. And I think that has a big effect on how we see all these things
Yeah.
that are in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, do I want to continue to be a part of that? Because I really value the part where bringing people together. That part is incredibly important to me. That somebody
Yes.
who is sitting in what they think is their tiny little red town, and they think they are the only blue person in that whole town, and it turns out that they're not. And they
Mm-hmm.
make a connection, and that person makes a connection. Maybe it's because they see each other. I've had people who've seen each other or mentioned something on a comment on like a thread, like I live in blah blah blah, and they're like, oh my God, I live in blah blah blah, and they find each other, or they find each other because they're wearing a badass t-shirt,
Mm-hmm.
or people who come together because they go to a quilt retreat and they see somebody with a Gladys sticker on their sewing machine and they're like, oh, that's somebody I feel safe sitting near.
Yeah.
That's the part that I want to be remembered for.
Yeah.
That's the part of making people feel connected and feel loved and feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
That's That's the overriding thing for me, way
Yeah.
above quilting. Quilting just happens to be kind of the vehicle
Mm-hmm.
to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, it's got to be something.
Right.
I mean, because probably had I just come onto the internet and said, hey, let's all hold hands if we're blue, it wouldn't have necessarily, that would just, people have come together through that. Now, the funny part is we have a lot of people who've joined Badass who are not even quilters.
Right.
But that's the jive. They're creative people. They're almost always creative. Maybe they're, their needlepoint, their woodwork, their painting, their whatever. They are some part of the creative arts. And maybe they've always been like, maybe I'd like to try sew or whatever. But it's the people
Yeah.
that are
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that way. And I mean, and I think that's what, when you're very authentic about the voice you use out in the world. I mean, and I see that from you. I see that when you're using this very authentic voice and that you bring to yourself because you've made the choice to be light. You
Mm-hmm.
are showing people and letting people come to you. Because I think about it that as being like a lighthouse
Mm-hmm.
because you have, chosen to use your voice out in the world so that people could find you because you could still be this amazing person that you are. But if you weren't putting your voice out on YouTube, on your podcast, on those things, nobody would know.
Right.
They would not be able to cluster to you, surround, and then find each other.
Right. Right, exactly. And I think that was also something that I had to face about my whole situation of with the business, with the podcast. Like, where do I want to stand in all of it? And thanks to you and the community and feeling supported in using my voice, of having people who have my back and say, yeah, we got you, boo. Like, say what
Oh,
you
yeah.
need to say,
Mhm.
stand your ground where you need to stand your ground. And like, this community has your back. And that has really, like, tightening my circle has helped, because
Mhm.
I think as I learn more about myself and what I will and won't accept in my life, I've narrowed my circle intentionally, and I'm more selective about gets so close to me. And I do, like you, I put a lot of myself out here because I want people to know who I am, that when they see me talking to you in this episode, that if they met me in person, they would get the exact same girl. I'm not going to show up as somebody else all of a sudden and be like,
No,
oh, I
and
have a
I
podcast, I can't talk to you. Like, no, I see you and I'm going to hug you, I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to ask you questions. Like, I want to know about your life, and it's important to me.
oh,
And
yeah.
so, like, having people, having a dedicated community that I know for sure hears me and I hear them, and we can see each other and and recognize that in each other and feel safe in that space is like so important to me as a
Oh, yeah.
person. So,
Yeah, one of the things I said when we had the event was that I think of it like a game that like you've got those like the childhood playground games where people are knocking each other over. I mean, because like I think dodgeball is the meanest game on the planet.
so
It's like
mean.
sanctioned bullying.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's sanctioned by a lady with a whistle and some shorts. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
I'm not a dodgeball fan, I will admit. But I think about Red Rover
Mhm.
and that you, as an individual person, you can get knocked over. But when you're playing Red Rover, you are locking arms with the person on either side of you. And whether you are the tall person or the short person or the curvy person or whatever, you gain your strength by the people who are on either side of you.
Yeah.
And so if you are not at your best at that moment, it's okay because your booze on either side gotcha.
Hmm.
And when they're having a problem, then you and the other person on the other side are going to have them. And that strength is what we have because when somebody says something snarky and crappy to us on the internet, and then it's, by nature, you're just like, oh, then you're like, oh, fuck that.
Yeah.
But, I've got my people. My people know me. They know. And just because this weirdo on the internet happens to be offended that I think that we should all have that reproductive rights should be everybody's rights and they want to say something horrible to me, well, big deal.
Yeah.
Ideally, should we feel that without having people around us? Yes. But the strength that we get, the emotional strength that we have by knowing that we are locking arms with other people who have our backs,
Hmm.
that's primo.
Yeah.
That is a pinnacle strength in community.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just being part of a community like that, it's like feels so good to be able to send people, be like, you know what, you would love the Badass Quilter Society. Like, and being able to say, like, hey, I know a slew of businesses that are like-minded, where you can find different crafting needs. Go
Yeah.
check out this list. It's like, it's something that I think it can be really overwhelming to like know where to send people or know what to
Oh,
suggest or like know where I can go, safely.
sure.
And as a quilter and a business owner, it's like I need to also be able to source things that I feel good about and offer to my clients that I feel good about. And it can be overwhelming and daunting to kind of dig through that all yourself. And so when you have like this baked in community where people come to say, you know what, I want to be a part of this, I want people to know that I'm safe, then it's like, okay, great, I feel good vouching for these people. So then it's
Yeah.
another place like I can send other people too. And it takes, because we're building ourselves, the community, we're bolstering ourselves, we're recommending people, we're trying to get other businesses involved to be sponsors. um
That's
it's
exactly it. I mean, because the other day somebody said to me, they were like, "Yeah, we need to do some more advertising." I was like, "Well, have you thought about advertising on a podcast?" I mean, and I'm just because I know that those are the
yeah.
people that they are looking for. So I'm like, "Well, I have a friend Amanda who's got a podcast,
Yeah.
and there's that reciprocal energy back and
Mm-hmm.
forth. That's one of the big reasons why, like, I don't, while I did, I was there to meet people at H&H.
Yeah.
There is not a single person, no matter how much I love them, no matter how much I was drooling over their booth and their aesthetic and the person that they were, there's not a single person that I invited to be a sponsor
Mm-hmm.
because they know that there's a sponsorship opportunity. And for me, it's about them reaching out because then they are all in.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's not all in, I don't want to have to convince them. Will I tell them like what are the benefits of it? Sure. Am I going to tell them that it's like only 20 bucks a month? Yeah, I'm going to tell them that if they want to know, if they ask me. But I'm not going to lead with that because I really want companies who are all in so that I feel extra good about publishing that list every week in community and every month over on Instagram. So
Yeah.
people know those things. Because I mean, and of course, do I live in every day? Do I look through those people? Because somebody said, well, how do you know they really are? I said, well, I do deep dives, first place into their content and stuff like that. And I said, and second place, if somebody was, especially conservative, they would never come. They would not want to be associated with me.
No,
It's
no.
very self-selective that way.
Yeah.
So I,
Yeah.
I feel really good about it. And I love the group of people and I love the collaborations that they're making and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And that because I watched one who said, we don't have this, but I happen to know the other, shop on the badass list does go, get it from them, which I was just like, so nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's what I want because even as business owners need business owner friends also
Yes.
are like-minded
Yes.
also to talk about stuff
Mm-hmm.
that is very unique to those situations because there's not a business owner who's not worried right now
No.
and but they're doing the good work out there, especially those who are I will toot my own horn that are sponsors. So I'm
Yeah.
really happy about that. And I'm happy that they do things for our community. Some people do sponsorships. I mean, they do like discounts. We don't require that of people because
Right.
sometimes it's just not in the bottom line to do a discount.
Mm-hmm.
But just for me, knowing that if when I'm spending my money with one of my things, I know that it's putting dinner on their table. It's paying their employees who I really appreciate. So
Yeah.
feels better. And maybe I probably spend a little more money because of it.
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm willing to fork over a little more
Yeah.
of my money because I know it's going to a person who's going to keep upholding my
Mhm.
what I value in the world. And like, yeah. And like you said, you can be so choosy so far, and there are some instances where maybe you don't have access to something that you might need right away, or like the everyday things where, but
Oh,
it's like if it's your fun spending money, if it's not your day-to-day whatever, then I think those dollars almost have more value in my opinion, because that's where you're
Oh, discretionary
choosing.
dollars.
Yeah.
Discretionary dollars are votes.
Yes.
Discretionary, I mean, I can't do anything about the company that provides electricity for my house.
Right.
That is out of my purview at this
Right.
point. I can't do anything about, sometimes somebody lives in such a small town that Walmart is the only place that they can shop. Well, then I'm
Exactly.
like, then shop there. Shop with the brands that you know as much as possible and do as much good as you can in the world. I'm
Hmm.
never going to hang somebody out to dry for that kind of thing.
No.
But I mean, will I give side eye to somebody who tells me that they just went to Hobby Lobby? I mean, I'm like, I am. I am.
Yeah.
I mean, good or bad, whether or not I will be judged in the herever after for giving side eye. I'm like, there is not one thing that somebody could not live without from Hobby Lobby.
Hmm.
And given what they do in the world, I mean, so and everybody's gonna find their own line. Everybody's got their own line in the sand.
Hmm.
And so that's just where I've chosen to do mine that I'll do without it if I
Yeah.
have to, or I'll wait longer. I did that the other day because I made a little video about I've been sewing clothes,
Yeah.
to sewing clothes again, and I made a video, weirdly enough, about using buttonhole elastic.
I saw that.
I
Yeah.
said, well, people are like, where do I get this magical stuff? And I was like, well, I had to order mine from a small business that I know because The only other place, because our Joann's is not closed down yet, but they are stripped naked. They have weird stuff in there right now. It's really strange.
Mine closes tomorrow.
Does it?
So,
Yeah, I think mine could have closed in the past week since I hadn't really been out in anything. But before that, they had like they had yarn, but everything was the exact same ball of yarn. I mean,
hmm
and they had like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them.
hmm
But they were still only 50% off.
Yeah.
I was like, you know,
hmm
it's like there's only so many things I can make out of. It was like purple, orange, and brown variegated yarn.
Oh.
I mean, it was like it wasn't attractive. It was like, but I was just like, it had obviously been in a warehouse someplace, but
hmm
there was like really weird stuff.
Yeah.
So, so I had to order my buttonhole elastic, so it took longer. Somebody said, well, you could have gone to, Hobby Lobby here in town because Michael's didn't have it. I
Mm.
always think of Michael's as being inert. I actually don't. I have not.
I know.
I mean, my Michaels has started carrying fabric. Now, not good fabric, not nice fabric, but it's all like comic book fabric. It's a very weird choice. I'll be
Hmm.
interested because I mean, there's a huge market for them to pick up. There's a big market lag that they could pick up in different stuff now.
hmm
But I'll be interested to see what they do because I don't understand their buying at all. I walk in there and I'm like, who did crack? I mean,
Yeah.
I was like,
Somebody snorted cocaine before they purchased these things
yeah.
because what is happening in
They
this
did.
store?
Well, it's like, do I really need a gnome who's got his pants pulled down and is bending over? I don't think so. The spring gnome collection is bare-butted gnomes. I'm like, what the what? But you don't have elastic. I mean,
Right.
so I'm like,
Right. It's like you could have been helpful, but
but no, but you chose not.
yeah.
You chose the side of the oppressor. I don't know.
Right. It's so
I know.
wild. Oh
I
my
know.
God.
I know. It's crazy.
So crazy. Oh, I had a question about H&H, but it
Yeah.
left my brain for 2 seconds. I guess, oh yeah, I think I wanted to talk about that, like the realness aspect versus like, so I think because of like social media and all that, like, and I had it with QuiltCon too. And now that I've been, it's so fun. And I'm not going to say that I won't go now that I've been because of
Mhm.
that. But like, I think there is this like level of FOMO that happens, which is like, I got to buy all the fabric. I got to make this quilt. I got to do this. I got to be keeping up with everybody. And I think H&H is one of those things where it's like, yes, it's an industry trade show. So it's not like it's not a quilt show. It's not like QuiltCon in that way, but like, I think having that FOMO, but I think once you go and you experience it, it's like it opens up a different perspective on it. And then it's like, oh, I can
Mhm.
relax now, It,
It is because and they bank on a certain amount of FOMO. I
yeah.
mean, quilt shows definitely do. And I would say like with the Houston Quilt Show
hmm
and Quilts Incorporate, I mean, and then Modern Quilt. I mean, you've got other quilt shows. I just don't think that they have the certain anymore. They don't have the same. I mean, like 10 years ago, Paducah had like huge, but it doesn't have the same kind of draw anymore in that way. But there is a FOMO and they want you to have that FOMO and it's designed for you to have that.
hmm
Because they need you to come because in the end, it is a business.
Yeah.
You're a business, I'm a business, they're a business.
hmm
And so for them to attract people and to get people, I mean, because just in a whole circular way, the people who come there and vend need to have people to sell to.
Yep.
They need to have people come to vend to pay them to have the space. Um, it is a whole circular economy of its own.
hmm
And it can be, I mean, the year before, so I went to, well, of course we saw each other. I saw we at this last QuiltCon. The QuiltCon before that, the day before, I got COVID for the second time the day before. They won it from the Atlanta show. I was
Oh,
supposed to be at the Atlanta show. I was supposed to do stuff. And the day before I was like, I sounded like Dolores Umbridge. I kept clearing my throat, and I was like, "That's weird. I should take a test." And it lit up faster than a pregnancy test a month after prom.
oh my
I mean,
God.
it was like wham!
Oh my God.
It was so fast. Literally, I mean, I had not put the fifth drop on, like you put the five drop,
Uh-huh.
and it was like boom. I was like, oh, and then I very quickly got sick after that. And so I mean, it was, I could not be there, obviously. And
Mhm.
but I had huge FOMO, even though I had been to multiple different ones over the years. And I think when we keep reminding ourselves that first, another one's always going to happen,
Yep.
another thing's going to happen, and we are their target. We
Yep.
are the target of the advertising. And whether once people want to call it advertising, but everything that's on Instagram is advertising.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's meant to make us feel a certain way. And
Hmm.
hopefully it makes us feel good, but sometimes by byproduct, because we think that we're not being part of it, then we get the FOMO
Hmm.
and just kind of trying to stay in our own heads about, what's going on there can be a little more helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things. Yeah. If you can like kind of step back and go, oh, they're trying to make me want to go so that I can show up. Like, it doesn't mean that you can't want to go.
Oh, yeah, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
really fun being there. I mean, it's kind of weird though, because like since I'm not a modern quilter,
Hmm.
I can go there and have a lot of fun meeting people and meeting people who are badass quilters and stuff like that. But it's not necessarily my aesthetic
Right.
going there. But the flip of it is that Paducah, where there are a lot more traditional quilts, the people are not mine.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really weird thing. So I'm always going to favor people over context.
Hmm.
Because in the end, again, that harkens back to, who do I want to be known for? And so for me, it's the people more than the quilts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're going there because you want to see the peoples and because otherwise, the only time you connect with those peoples is through this, it's through this box.
Yeah.
It's the only way, that you're connecting. So it's your one time to hug and to talk and to go out to dinner and do all those things. Then
Hmm.
I think, maybe FOMO is okay in that case because you're really missing your friends.
Hmm.
What I'm missing out on is my friends. Um,
Yeah.
and the byproduct is really cool stuff that you're not going to all see all at once in a lot of other places.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, in that case, it's probably okay. And we're just lucky it only happens once a year.
Right. I know. Oh my God. I was like, I think just getting to the point where I'm like, oh, right. Like, I have a presence in the community, whatever size it is. I still like, I have a quilting business. It's like, I can be at these things. I think part of my block or like the FOMO that comes from my head is like, well, it's not for me. I don't belong there. And now I'm like, yes, I do.
You do. You do more. And I mean, but I do understand that because again, I was like, well, I'm not really a modern quilter.
Hmm.
Should I be? In fact, somebody said, I didn't think you were a modern quilter. I said, I'm aesthetically, no, I am not a modern quilter. Can I admire those quilts? Absolutely. Are those the
Sure.
ones that I would pick to put in my home? No, because they don't go with anybody who looked at my house. It looks like Morticia Adams lives in my house. I mean, anybody who's seen the downstairs of my house, a modern quilt would not fit the aesthetic of my house.
Yeah.
And that part's not my jam, but the people are my jam.
Hmm.
And so I think it's just kind of realigning why you're there.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I love that.
Mhm.
And I think I mean, yeah, there are some like some shops will have like exclusive to QuiltCon things that you can only get if you're there, but mostly it's like, oh, I can just buy this on their website any old time. It's like you're not necessarily
Oh,
missing. I think some people think they're missing like products, and maybe it's like the sticker exchanges or the things that happen like in those
sure.
kinds of things.
That's
Like,
the social part. That's the
yeah,
social end
that's
of
the
it.
so you're not missing like, yeah, and so, and I like, I don't want to poo-poo it. I don't want to like kill anybody's dream of going to one of these things because I still want to go. I still want to attend everything too. I think just like having a more realistic perspective. But I think too, like you were saying, um, like what we see versus what our brains process, like the 5.99 is just $6, but our brain says five. And so the perception that we're taking in with our eyeballs
Mhm.
is like altering what we rationally know, like what you can rationalize, what you can think about, what you can tell yourself is going to be colored and shaded by the things that your eyeballs are taking in. And so if you're seeing all these people having such a great time without you, you know,
Oh, you can have that even while you're there.
yeah,
You can get, oh, I'm not one of the cool kids. Oh, those people wouldn't want to talk to me because they're the cool quilt designers, or they're the one, the celebrity shop owners, or there's lots of that. It'll bring up, they could probably do a swift trade. You know how like some places have like little massage boot, like the massage
mhm,
things? They could have like little therapy chairs.
yeah,
And probably a therapist could do speed therapy there because it brings up a lot of stuff for a lot of people. Um,
yeah,
because I mean, I'm not going to say that there's not some mean girl behavior that happens at these events because it does. By and far, is it lovely? Yes. But there are things like that, and it's because our own insecurities creep up in us. And it doesn't matter how much or how long you've been in the industry.
mhm,
There's those things do happen. And so we have to process through those things as well. I mean, I know when I'm there, I love seeing all the stuff and I
mhm.
take so many pictures. It's surprising my phone just doesn't melt into a puddle, or it's all over. And then I will go through, and most of the time, I'll order the stuff when I get home
Mhm,
because there's only so much I want to pack away. I mean, it's fun to bring stuff home, but
mhm.
there's only so much that I want to pack away, or honestly, wait in the lines because the lines are incredibly long
Yeah,
because people want to do it. But it's also a really great time for those businesses to do this hunk of business that actually really carries them through a good, couple months more of the year
yeah,
they come in and do
yeah,
those things. So
yeah,
I'm never, like you said, I'm never going to poo-poo on any of it,
yeah,
um, because there's so much of it that I love. It would be silly for me not to, because it would be a lie,
mhm,
because I love doing those things. But it's not the be all end all,
mhm.
and it does just because you're there doesn't mean you're in,
Right.
and just because you're home doesn't mean you're out. Um, and so trying to keep our heads from going into those places that are not good for us
Mhm.
in those ways. Um, I think it takes a lot to do, but it's really important.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it just, you know, I feel like this, we have this theme of like really facing yourself at this time
Mm.
and understanding where those feelings are coming from and working on yourself, like your image of yourself, your what do you perceive when you think about your own self and in relationship to who's around you
Mm.
and the people that you invite into your circle. And I think that's like the, you're talking about the mean girl behavior, like it can be really ugly sometimes. And it's like people over policing each other on like, well, you're not progressive enough, or you said this one word wrong. It's like, stop it. This is where the breakdown happens, is when we start over policing each other's progressiveness or over policing each other's, unless somebody's like doing something really wrong,
Yeah.
like for reals, and you ask them about it, like, hey, did you mean this? And I think that's,
Yeah.
instead of assuming like, oh, they meant to do this, the question, this is what I heard or this is what I saw, is that what you meant? Lets that person know that they're being perceived maybe differently than they intended, but also you're asking for clarity. And I think being clear is being kind. That comes from Brene Brown, and I still love her. And I think she has so much wisdom, but that's true. Like, and just like showing up exactly as much of what we want to share on here, as transparent as we can be, with also keeping parts of our lives to ourselves, because, other people in our lives don't need to be constantly brought up in our social circle,
Mhm.
our social facing selves and whatever. But it's like trying to be clear about who I am so that other people can choose how to engage with me and interact with me or not to. And if they choose not to, that's okay. Like I'm giving you full permission to not like me, to not
Oh
want
yeah.
to work with me, to not want to be a part of my business. That's okay, but you don't have to be mean about it, and you can just leave.
No, it really is true. And I think when you are incredibly clear about who you are and the values you hold, then people don't have to think about, they don't have to like
Wonder, yeah.
You wonder. And when you're firm in those values and you're not waffling about them, or you're not, obfuscating them or trying to, I mean, because nothing irritates the crap out of me more than a brand who puts up we're getting ready to go through Pride. We
Mhm.
do a big thing for Pride in Badass. We're just like all there. But you see companies who do like, you're like, was that a nod to Pride or was that not? And I'm just like, that was kind of half-assed.
Mhm.
I'm like, just don't do it if you're going to do it half-assed.
Right.
Just don't do it. Don't make it the secret that you're like. Some people are like, oh, it just irritates. It's sort of one of those things that irritates me. I do think being clear
Yeah.
is incredibly kind that way, just like you and Brene said, and it just helps, and it also helps me because then I don't have to have awkward conversations.
Right.
Because, nobody loves an awkward conversation. And so if people know who you are up front, they're just not going to come to you if they are, there are brands that will never come and talk to me because that is not where they sit. And
Mhm.
that's great because I don't want to talk to them either.
Right. It just saves everybody time and
Yeah.
disappointment. And I think that's been like Aaron and I recently talked about like the micro influencer kind of side of things of like brands wanting to partner. It's like, yeah, but well, like, why do you want to partner with me when you're trying to push me to use Amazon when you know I'm not shopping Amazon or I'm not pushing to shop with Amazon? Like, I know some people don't have a lot of options. Again, like I'm not gonna like come after somebody if that's their only way of getting something that they really need. Sure, do what you got to do, but like if you have the choice and you're just like again the discretionary funds, the fun money, like spend it somewhere else, But I'm also like I have to be okay with saying I'm not a good fit for you because
Yeah.
I'm not going to push an Amazon affiliate link. Like I'm just not,
No. And it is so when you're making those choices, because like right now, I have actually taken down my link for, in fact, somebody actually asked me because I'd put up my one of the first kitten videos I'd put, and somebody said, "Oh, I went to go try to find your kitten link to buy some stuff for you." I said, "I took it down. It was an Amazon link for our thing." I said, "I'm still trying to figure out what to do about that because Chewy was supposed to do one, and then it doesn't work right really."
Oh,
But people are like, well, I really still want to be able to buy you stuff, and that's really the only way to ship you stuff for kittens.
mhm.
There are things that we run into in life that are not, but am I still buying my stuff there? No, I'm not. I'm shopping from, directly from companies who I found far and wide, mostly, especially if I'm buying enough, are they're also free shipping.
Yeah.
So I just, instead of buying, because I just bought all my Dr. Bronner soap.
Hmm.
And theirs was like $100, I think. Well, I just bought a year's worth of the soap. Now, is that a privilege? Yeah, that is me sitting in my privilege, and I do have the privilege to be able to do that. So
Hmm.
if somebody else doesn't, I totally get that.
Right.
But I was able to get my free shipping because I just bought all of the laundry soap I needed for a year at one time.
Hmm.
So, I mean, so that wraps all up in privilege, which is a whole other quilting conversation because
Right.
quilting really comes with a lot of privilege in it. And which I don't think we spend enough time acknowledging.
No.
And so,
Yeah.
totally other show. Yeah.
Right. I know. I know. Well, but then it makes places like what Rada does
Hmm.
important because it's like she also has a huge list of places where you can buy secondhand or donated
And dead stock fabrics and
dead
stuff like
stock fabrics.
that.
And like there's a couple of spots here in town that are on where I live that are on there, the Reuseum and the reuse market. And there's another one I can't remember, but it's like people are like, oh, I just not using this fabric anymore. They either try to sell it for commission, or
Yeah.
consignment, or they,
I'm very jealous of people who have places like that. It's probably best for my wallet and my cabinets that we don't have a place like that
right, right,
because I would be like all over that,
right.
all
Yeah.
over it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but there is definitely a level of privilege, and I think that that is part of that, like keeping up with the Joneses kind of perspective is like I have to look like I have more privilege than I do, but it's like you don't, and it's capitalism.
It is capitalism. I mean, my youngest would say, that I'm a dirty capitalist. And the truth of the matter is I buy, things. I own a business. I
Hmm.
sell products. I am a capitalist. I'm trying to do my best within that. Because as I said, well, as my husband once said to one our youngest one, is like, well, this dirty capitalist paid for you to go to college, so you graduated without debt.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I'm like, well, I said, well, this, and it's hard because I do get it. I get all those things. I get the complexity of life, but I
Right.
mean, I wouldn't be able to, support my shelter if I didn't have the money from Badass.
Right.
I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to buy, I just bought a ton of binders. There's a trans program who
Hmm.
lost their funding through this catastrophic horribleness. They have lost their funding, which came through another organization that got government funding. And so they have no binders. And so I just happened to find out. So I was able to write a check to buy binders for these kids in this trans program.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have done that unless I was selling the t-shirts, the
Right.
Badass t-shirts. So I try to hope that it has some cycle of redemptive good.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like my husband and I talk about that all the time. It's like just because we don't agree with capitalism, like we live in the system, whether we like it or not. And
Yeah.
so we can either use it to our advantage so that we can, in turn, like you said, turn around and spend our money in places where we feel like is going to make an impact,
Mhm.
or we can be choose to be like destitute and like not, I'm not going to give it. It's like, well, okay, but like, I
What am
don't
I
know.
going to do if I don't have a roof over my head?
Right, exactly.
I'm no good to anybody. I mean, while the analogy is a little on the lame side, I mean, I still have to have my oxygen mask first
Right,
because this world is not changing right now. And so all I can do is change the parts that I can change
right,
right now. And that's just going to have to be good enough.
right. Yeah, within your circle of influence, what can you
Yeah.
do with your like, and I think that can be overwhelming too, as people feel like I've got to fight this, but I don't know how. It's like just start with who you touch. Like
Oh, yeah.
who is in your circle? Who do you have influence with? Who do you, not to say like I'm going to influence you and change your mind, but like who is going to see what you're doing and feel empowered to then do something in their own life? It's like, and again, it's that clarity of like, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is where my money goes, this is what I stand for. Like, I'm not going to entertain, this wishy-washy, I'm on the fence, people don't really know one way or the other where I stand. Like, no, you're going to know what side of the fence I'm on,
Yeah.
and then you can make your choices accordingly. So anyway, I just find that all interesting, and especially like having gone to two quilt cons now and been able to step away from the FOMO situation. And I like, again, I was like feeling it with H&H, and then I saw everybody coming home sick and I was like, oh, it's good I missed it. Maybe I'll go next
Right.
year.
Yeah.
And I still want to go
Well,
because
next year there's a consumer show next year.
okay.
Next year there's a consumer show. So the same way quilts. So Houston has they have their trade show first, and then they have the public quilt show end of it. H&H next year will have a quilt show first for to the public, a quilt and craft show. So it's going to have other stuff. I don't exactly know how all that's coming together, but then the trade show bumps up against it.
Okay.
And so different opportunities. And will I wear a mask? Well, I hope I'll be smart enough to wear a mask, but or take
Right.
one of the new medicines. Because I actually found out there's some new medicines I probably could have been taking when I
Mm.
went there that helped trap the COVID, and I don't know the efficacy of them yet. So I will be looking into those.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, that'd be good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but well, if anybody wants to check out the Badass Quilter Society, you're obviously on Instagram. But your biggest spot is Patreon, really, right?
The biggest thing to get like that's not controlled by an algorithm. Because I mean, the statistic that we always hear, which seems to be really true, is that you only see 20% of what any one creator puts out fed into your feed. If you go
Hmm.
directly to their page, of course, you're going to see their stuff. Patreon is not algorithm driven. So if I push a post, it goes to everybody and you will
Yeah.
see it. The only reason you wouldn't see it is if you did not ever pick up your phone or pick up your email. And there's different ways to choose to how you get delivery for stuff, but you don't miss things.
Hmm.
And it's since it is uh, membership starts at $3 a month. It also means it's safe because what I've really found is that assholes are not willing to jump a $3 paywall.
Yeah.
They are willing to jump a $1 paywall. But
Mm,
$1 on Patreon usually means you're actually going in the hole, unless you've got thousands and thousands and thousands. Like if you, I think the break even is like if you have 20,000 people, because Patreon takes their cut, Patreon takes their cut, PayPal takes their cut. I mean, so as you well know,
yeah.
I mean everybody gets a little slice of the pie.
Yeah.
Um, but $3 is the level where everything's very safe,
Hmm.
so that people can have really deeper discussions, and I can talk about stuff that I'm not going to talk about publicly on Instagram, because I'm just not necessarily wanting to get all the weirdos in their basements. I don't need
Yeah.
their opinion.
Right. Yeah. It does. It's a way to have those conversations without also potentially inviting the worms.
Yeah, no,
And
those are the ones I just don't need. I get enough of
yeah.
them anyway, and
Hmm.
for just like pretty inert things. So if I'm
Hmm.
having like the really, a big conversation about, in fact, I'm working on a post. I haven't been able to kind of coalesce it all together, but talking about the woman in Georgia who's being kept alive as an
Ugh.
incubator, to incubate her pregnancy,
Mm.
and how that affects all of us,
Mhm.
and how, and right back to a history lesson about Henrietta Lacks, and how, her biological data was stolen from her, and how this is not new. We tend to think these things are all new, and they're just horrors revisited and made bigger and better with a second chance for people who are not great to do horrible things under a guise,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Ugh.
Patreon's the place.
Okay. So we'll send people there.
Woo!
And with when you join community, you get access to discounts from a lot
You
of
do.
the
You do. You,
businesses.
you, you get discounts. You get special sales that they're having,
Mhm.
secret sales, different things like that. Content that I don't share anyplace else. Content that the makers necessarily don't, like the sponsors don't share other places. And mostly you get, like I said, you get safety.
Yeah.
You get safety, and then just that sense of community, because the truth of the matter is, and I make no bones about it, it is what pays my salary. It is
Yeah.
what pays me to be able to keep doing what I do. When I brought Badass back, I said, I kind of made this like, how much should I have to make for this to be worth it? I mean,
Hmm.
because there's a social aspect to it, but I also have bills to pay like
Right.
everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I put like this stake in the sand. I said, if it pays at least as much as I would make working part-time at Home Goods, putting tchotchkes on a shelf, and then I would consider it, a go, because
Hmm.
it has to. I can't do it as a philanthropic thing, because
Right.
honestly, there's lots of other things in my life, kittens, children, different stuff like that, that also deserve my time and my attention, and something's got to pay the grocery bill.
Yeah. For sure. I know. And that's like, I kind of, yeah. Anyway, well, that's awesome. And I have loved being a sponsor. I've loved being part of the community and just like being connected with people and that safety like you're talking about. And that's a thing for me that reoccurs in my life, is just like the feeling that I like of needing safety
Hmm.
and within myself, but also with the people around me. And so it just feels really good to be a part of that community and know that I'm safe, my business is safe, and that I can
Mhm.
give that feeling to other people too. I can share that
Yeah.
and say, you're safe with me. Like I'm here to be the person for you that you need. I'm here to be the person for me that I needed. It's like,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, I mean, I've been so happy to have you, and we have a couple other long armors, and nobody else has a podcast though. But that, because I have had so many people who came to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I got to my quilter's house and there's a MAGA flag outside," or I started seeing stuff that she put up and I just can't take my quilts there anymore. Where should I be taking my quilts? And so I can say without a moment's hesitation, is I've got names on my list of amazing long arm quilters who are would love to love your quilt. Or I had somebody who had the quilt that they sent off, and then they mentioned to the person that it was for their daughter, and their daughter was getting married, and the person was like, great, and then she mentioned that her daughter was marrying a woman, and the woman said, I can't do your quilt. and it was like on a really short timeline. And so luckily I was able to, finagle some stuff for her and at one point, and but she had to send it back, and so she was afraid this person was going to hurt her quilt.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because when you have invested that time to make that top and you really want to have it quilted, I mean, you want to know that you're sending your baby off to somebody who supports not only who you are, but the art that you've put down, in
Yeah.
stitches.
Yeah.
So I love having places that I can say without a doubt, this
Yeah.
place is going to honor your quilt.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels really good to be a person that can offer that as well, because I know it is scary, especially when if you're mailing out your quilt to be long armed, like you
Mhm.
don't know the person. It's like if you can yeah, if it's like, okay, I know it's coming from this list. I know that this place is safe. I know that this person is gonna, you know, not manhandle my quilt in a way that's gonna harm it because of whatever reason. Like
Mhm.
it's you know, it's important. So anyway, I appreciate that you've built this community, and I appreciate that I can be a part of it. And um I've loved it, and I've loved just getting to know you over the last couple of years, and like
I can't believe it's been 2 years.
I
I mean,
know.
it's been 2 years since we did the podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I know. It was so crazy. I was like, because I've had a few revisits here, like a few people have been on again for the second
Uh,
time recently, and it's been so fun to just dive a little deeper, have a different
oh
conversation than the just
yeah.
they get to know you. It's like we know each other so well now. It's like we can
Yes.
have these different conversations and
Oh yeah.
and bring a new perspective on our experiences. And so it's been really fun. But well, before we wrap up, I would love to know if you have a tip or piece of advice that you can offer to our lovely listeners out there.
Oh, gracious. That's,
No pressure.
no pressure. We've talked about so much. I mean, I think it's really that now is the moment. I think we lived in this like what we thought was like kind of a pregnant pause during COVID, and now we feel like maybe this is another pause. But in the breadth of life, now is still that moment.
Mhm.
So, there's only so long you can hold your breath. And so go backwards, take a deep breath, and if you need to make a change, make a change.
Mhm.
It's not going to make it any worse. It's not going to maybe make it any better, but if you hold a change forever, you're never going to make the change. So don't be afraid that you have to stop living in a time of crisis. In the same way that we continue to make things and find joy, you still need to honor yourself and your path. And if you have a big change that is calling to you, why not now?
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. You're never going to get younger. You're never going to get, it's
No.
like, it's like when, and I didn't birth children, but it's like, same thing. It's like if you just keep waiting until you're ready, quote unquote, ready,
Yeah.
you're never going to be ready. There's never going to be a perfect moment in that time, but like maybe you'll look back and go, oh, I see everything that led to that
No,
decision. And
there
like,
is not a magic moment. And sorry, somebody's come to visit.
it's
Um,
okay.
no, that's not nice. That was rude. She's got to put a little harder starfish on there. But yeah, no, there's not a moment, and I feel like that we keep talking about having these pauses and until things get better,
Mhm.
and you just can't keep waiting for things to get better. You just
No.
have to make the changes, and not in haste, not in some crazy way, but I don't know, just have faith in
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, trusting yourself. I think
Yeah,
yeah, that's like a big piece of it. And I think so many of us don't trust ourselves because
yeah.
of one reason or another, whether, it was in childhood or something happened, as a young adult that shaped kind of that, shakes that faith that you have in yourself, that you know yourself well enough to make a good decision. It's, it's a tricky place to be. And I've been facing that too, of like trusting myself, knowing that I know what's best for me and what I need. And so I can just speak to that it's hard, but it's doable. And the more you know, build like build little things into your day that you can say, I'm going to do this thing, you follow through with that thing. It's like you start building trust in yourself in that way. And so then when it comes to the bigger decisions, you have started rebuilding that trust over time with yourself because you follow through on things that you say you're going to do, whether it's like, I'm going to get up and brush my teeth right now, and then you actually go do it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Even
okay.
did that. I followed through on the tiny, and sometimes it is those tiny things that you need so that you are building that muscle for
Mhm.
that. And that's, I mean, I talk about the resistance muscle. You start with small things, and then people are like, how do you speak up so much online? I said, you start with tiny things. And then I heard a thing the other day that somebody said, because we're back into summer, we're back into the summer, and she said, do it fat. Because she said
Oh.
she feels heavy. She's gained some weight because of the
Mhm.
stress, and she said, "I've just decided I'm going to do it fat this summer. I'm going to wear my shorts. I'm going to wear my shorts fat. I'm going to go to the beach fat. I'm going to do these things." And I mean, I've thought about that myself as like, I'm going to do it because there's days, I feel sad. I'm like, well, I'm going to do this sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say you can cry and do the thing at the same time.
Yeah,
They're not mutually exclusive. And
no,
so,
they're not.
and I'm a crier, so like if something's hard or I bump against conflict or confrontation, like
Mhm.
tears just jump out of my face. I'm mad, I'm crying. I'm sad, I'm crying. I'm happy, I'm crying. Like
Uh-huh.
that's just how my body expresses
So you're
those.
just doing it while crying.
Right. And so it's like, I'm just going to do this and cry because that's the only way it's going to get done. I can sit here and cry and wallow, or I can cry and do the hard thing. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm going to choose to do both.
yeah, no,
So,
do it.
anyway,
Yay.
well, thank you so much again for hopping on the show. And
Thank you.
I'm excited to see the kind of merging of different handcrafts and sewing. And I, as a yarn person, I love crochet and I love yarn crafts and I love all kinds of crafts, to be honest. But just to see people kind of branching out and seeing shops branch out to offer more
Mhm.
to their patrons so that we can access different things, because I think it's like quilting, if somebody hasn't done anything before they step into quilting, it's a gateway for like 1,000 other things
Uh-huh.
and vice versa. So
Uh-huh. No, definitely so.
yeah.
Absolutely. It's been an amazing conversation. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
of course. And obviously we'll be in touch, but um I will put links below in the show notes for people to get to you, and
Yes.
otherwise we'll see you online.
Awesome. Thanks.